The bus wheels screeched against the pavement as it came to a stop in front of a small wooden sign that read, "Welcome to Cedar Falls, Montana, population 847. Rosa clutched her old brown suitcase tighter as she looked through the dusty window. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. After 26 hours on 3 different buses, she had finally made it. This was it. Her new life was about to begin. Rosa stepped down from the bus, her legs shaky from sitting for so long. The hot Montana sun hit her face immediately. She had never felt heat like this back home in her small village in the Philippines. Everything here looked so different. Buildings were low and spread out, not crowded together like back home. The streets were wide and mostly empty. Few pickup trucks were parked along the main road, covered in dust. She reached into her purse and pulled out a crumpled photograph. The picture showed a man with brown hair and kind eyes, standing next to a young girl who looked about 7 years old. His name was David, and he had been writing letters to her for almost a year. The marriage agency had connected them. His letters always sounded so warm and caring. In his last letter, David had written about how much he missed having a woman's touch in his home. His wife had died in a car accident 3 years ago, leaving him to raise his daughter Luna all by himself. He worked on a cattle ranch just outside of town and said he needed someone who could help make his house feel like a home again. Rosa had read his letters so many times that she almost knew them by heart. He talked about quiet evenings on the porch teaching Luna how to braid her hair and maybe even expanding their little family someday. It all sounded like a dream come true, back in her village. Rosa had worked in a small grocery store for barely enough money to help her aging parents. She shared a tiny room with her 2 sisters and had never owned anything that was truly hers. The idea of having her own home, her own family, and a chance to build something beautiful made her heart sing with hope. She looked around the bus station, which was really just a bench and a small shelter. David had told her he would be there at 3 o'clock sharp to pick her up. She checked the cheap watch on her wrist. It was already 3:15. Maybe he was just running late. Ranch work probably didn't follow a strict schedule. Rosa sat down on the bench and opened her suitcase to double-check that she had everything. Inside were 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, some undergarments, a few photographs of her family, and a small wooden cross that her grandmother had given her before she died. Everything she owned in the world fit in this one small case. She also had a letter from the local priest back home, confirming that she was a good Catholic woman with no criminal record. David had asked for this in one of his letters. She had. The medical papers, too, showing that she was healthy and could have children. The marriage agency had required all of these documents. A pickup truck turned onto the main street, and Rosa's heart jumped. Was this him? The truck was blue, just like David had described in his letters. It slowed down as it approached the bus. Station and Rosa stood up, smoothing down her best dress. But the truck kept driving past without stopping. Rosa sat back down and tried not to worry. Maybe he had gotten the time wrong. Maybe there was an emergency at the ranch. She had come so far already. A few more minutes wouldn't matter. While she waited, Rosa thought about the journey that had brought her here. The marriage agency had shown her profiles of several men, but David's letters stood out immediately. He didn't just talk about what he wanted from a wife. He asked questions about her dreams, her favorite foods, and what made her laugh, when she had written back telling him about her love of cooking and how she helped take care of the neighbor's children. He seemed genuinely interested. He wrote back saying that Luna was shy around new people, but loved to help in the kitchen. Thought Rosa would be perfect for their little family. The hardest part had been telling her parents. Her mother had cried for days, worried about her daughter moving so far away to marry a man she had never met, but her father understood. There were no opportunities in their village. Rosa was already 25 and still unmarried, which made people whisper. This was her chance for a better life. Her younger sisters had been excited for her, helping her pack and asking her to write letters about America. They made her promise to send pictures of her new home, and maybe even some American candy if she could afford it. Rosa pulled out David's most recent letter and read it again. He had sent detailed directions about how to get to Cedar Falls, and promised that they would go to the courthouse to get married as soon as she was ready. He said Luna was excited to have a new mother and had been asking when Rosa would arrive. An idea of being a mother filled Rosa with both excitement and nervousness. She had helped raise her younger sisters and had always been good with children. But becoming a stepmother to a girl who had lost her real mother felt like a big responsibility. Another truck appeared in the distance, this one darker and moving slower. Rosa stood up again, her stomach full of butterflies. This had to be him. The truck pulled up to the bus station and stopped. Through the windshield, Rosa could see a man with brown hair, just like in the photograph. He was looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. David got out of the truck slowly. He was taller than Rosa had expected, and his face looked more serious than in the picture he had sent. He walked toward her without smiling. "You're Rosa?" he asked, his voice flat and businesslike. "Yes, I am Rosa. You are David, right?" She smiled nervously and gestured toward her suitcase. "I have been waiting. The bus arrived on time." David looked her up and down in a way that made Rosa feel uncomfortable. It wasn't the warm, welcoming look she had imagined during all those hours. On the bus? "You're smaller than I expected," he said. Not really to her, but more like he was talking to himself. And darker. Rosa's smile faltered. What did he mean by that? In his letters, he had never mentioned caring about her appearance beyond asking. For one photograph, which she had sent months ago, "I am sorry if I am not what you expected," she said quietly. "But I am the same person who wrote you all those letters." David picked up her suitcase without asking and walked toward his truck. "Come on, we need to get back to the ranch. Luna is waiting, and I have work to do before dark." Rosa followed him, trying to push down the worried feeling growing in her stomach. Maybe he was just tired. Maybe meeting her in person made him nervous too. Once they got to know each other better, surely he would warm up to her the way his letters had suggested he would as they drove away from the bus station. Rosa looked back at the small town one more time. She was committed now. There was no bus ticket home in her purse. She had used almost all of her savings to get here. This was her new beginning, whether it turned out the way she had dreamed or not. The truck ride to David's ranch felt like the longest 20 minutes of Rose's life. She tried to make conversation, asking about the landscape and the town, but David only gave short answers or grunted in response. The man sitting next to her felt like a complete stranger, nothing like the thoughtful person who had written those beautiful letters. "So Luna is excited to meet me?" Rosa asked, trying to break the uncomfortable silence. "She's fine," David replied, not taking his eyes off the road. "Just don't expect her to warm up to you right away. She's not good with strangers." Rosa felt her heart sink a little. In his letters, David had written about how Luna couldn't wait to have a mother figure in her life again. He had said the little girl was lonely and needed someone to talk to about girl things that he didn't understand. The ranch appeared in the distance, and Rosa's spirits lifted slightly. It was bigger than she had imagined, with a white farmhouse surrounded by green fields. Cattle grazed peacefully in the distance, and there was even a red barn, just like in the pictures she had seen of American farms. But as they got closer, Rosa noticed that the house needed work. The paint was peeling, and the front porch sagged. On one side, the yard was full of weeds, and broken farm equipment sat rusting near the barn. David parked the truck and got out without opening Rose's door for her. She had to scramble to get out on her own, nearly dropping her purse in the process. "Luna," David called toward the house. "Come out here." A small girl appeared in the doorway. She had long blonde hair and big blue eyes, and she looked exactly like the photograph David had sent. But instead of running to greet Rosa like a excited child might, Luna stayed on the porch, staring at her with suspicion. "Luna, this is Rosa," David said. "She's going to be staying with us." Rosa smiled and waved at the little girl. "Hello, Luna. I am so happy to meet you. Your father has told me so many wonderful things about you." Luna didn't say anything. She just kept staring at Rosa with those big blue eyes, and Rosa couldn't tell if the look was curious or unfriendly. "She doesn't talk much to people. She doesn't—" "No," David explained, but his tone suggested this was Rosa's fault somehow. "Don't take it personally." Rosa felt confused. In the letters, David had described Luna as a chatty, energetic child who loved to ask questions and tell stories. This quiet, withdrawn girl seemed like a different person entirely. David picked up Rosa's suitcase and headed toward the house. Come on, I'll show you where you'll be sleeping. Rosa followed him up the creaky porch steps and into the house. The inside looked even more run down than the outside. The furniture was old and worn, and there were dishes piled up in the sink. Dust covered most surfaces, and the whole place had a musty smell. This is the living room, David said, walking quickly through the space. Kitchen's over there, Luna's. Room is upstairs, and my room is at the end of the hall. Rosa looked around, trying to take it all in. Where will I be sleeping? David pointed to a small room off the kitchen. There's a cot in there. It used to be my wife's sewing room, but she never used it much anyway. Rosa's heart sank. A cot? In his letters, David had talked about them sharing a life together, becoming a real family. She'd assumed they would share a bedroom like a married couple. Aren't we going to get married soon? Rosa asked quietly. David turned to look at her with an expression that made her stomach twist. We'll get married when I decide you're ready. First, you need to prove that you can be useful around here. Useful, Rosa repeated, not understanding what he meant. Look around you, David said, gesturing at the messy house. This place has been falling apart since my wife died. I need someone who can cook, clean, take care of Luna, and help with the ranch work. If you can do those things without causing problems, then we'll talk about marriage. Rosa felt like she had been slapped. But in your letters, you said you wanted a partner. You said you wanted someone to share your life with. David's face hardened. I want someone who can pull her weight. My wife knew how to work. She could cook for 10 people, keep this house spotless, and still have energy to help me with the cattle. That's what I need. But I can do those things, Rosa said, trying to keep her voice steady. I love to cook, and I help my mother take care of our house. I just thought, ... I thought we would do it together as a team. You thought wrong, David said bluntly. I don't have time to hold your hand and teach you how things work around here. You either figure it out on your own, or this arrangement isn't going to work. Rosa looked around the messy kitchen and felt overwhelmed. She had expected to help with housework, of course, but David was talking about her like she was hired help. Not a future wife? What about Luna? Rosa asked. You said she needed a mother figure. She needs someone who can make her meals and keep her clothes clean, David replied. Don't go getting any ideas about playing house with her. She's my daughter, and I'll decide what's best for her. Luna had been standing in the doorway listening to their conversation. When Rosa looked at her, the little girl quickly disappeared. Back into the living room, David walked over to the kitchen table and picked up a piece of paper. Here's a list of things that need to be done around here. Breakfast is at 6, lunch at noon, dinner at 6:30. The laundry needs to be done twice a week, and this house needs to be properly cleaned from top to bottom. Rosa took the paper and looked at it. The list was 2 pages long and included everything from scrubbing floors to mending fences. At the bottom, David had written, no guests, no phone calls, no trips to town without permission. Permission? Rosa asked, looking up at him. I can't have you wandering around town gossiping about our business, David explained. I can't afford to have you wasting money on things we don't need. Until we're married, you're my responsibility, and I need to know where you are. Rosa felt like she couldn't breathe. But what if I need to buy things for cooking or cleaning? Make a list. I'll get what you need when I go to town. What about calling my family? I promised I would let them know I arrived safely. David shrugged. You can write them a letter. I'll mail it next time I'm in town. Rosa looked down at the list again, feeling tears starting to form in her eyes. This wasn't what she had expected at all. David's letters had been full of warmth and affection. He had written about quiet evenings together, sharing dreams and hopes for the future. He had made her feel like she would be loved and valued. Now, she felt like a servant who hadn't even been hired yet. I know this is a lot to take in, David said, but his voice didn't sound sympathetic. But I'm not running a charity here. I need help, and you need a place to stay. If you work hard and don't cause problems, we'll get along fine. Rosa nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She clutched the list in her hands and tried to figure out how her dream had turned into this nightmare so quickly. I'll leave you to get settled, David said. Dinner's in 2 hours. There's some ground beef in the refrigerator and potatoes. In the pantry. I'm sure you can figure out something to make. He walked out of the kitchen, leaving Rosa standing alone in the messy room. She could hear his boots on the stairs as he went up to his room. Rosa sat down at the kitchen table and finally let the tears come. She was thousands of miles from home, with barely any money and no way to get back. She had trusted David's letters completely, and now she felt like she had been tricked. But as she sat there crying, Rosa heard a small voice from the doorway. "Are you okay?" She looked up to see Luna standing there, no longer looking suspicious, but concerned. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Rosa said, wiping her eyes. "Just a little tired from the long trip." Luna came closer. "My dad gets grumpy sometimes. He's been sad since my mom died." Rosa felt her heart soften toward this little girl who seemed to understand more than adults gave her credit for. "Would you like to help me make dinner?" Rosa asked. "I could use an assistant." For the first time since Rosa had arrived, Luna smiled. "Can we make something good? Dad usually just makes sandwiches." Rosa managed to smile back. "We can make something very good." Maybe, Rosa thought, there was still hope for at least one relationship in this house. 3 weeks had passed since Rosa arrived at the ranch, and each day felt harder than the last. She woke up every morning at 5:30 to start breakfast, spent her days cleaning, cooking, and doing laundry, and fell into bed exhausted every night. David barely spoke to her except to point out things she had done wrong or to add more tasks to her endless list of chores. The worst part wasn't the hard work, though. Rosa had always been a hard worker. The worst part was feeling invisible, like she didn't matter as a person at all. "His coffee tastes weak," David complained one morning, pushing his cup away from him. "My wife always made it stronger." Rosa had heard that phrase so many times, she could predict when it was coming. Everything she did was compared to his dead wife, and she always came up short. His wife's cooking was better. His wife kept the house cleaner. His wife never complained about anything. "I'm sorry," Rosa said quietly, like she always did. "I'll make it stronger tomorrow." David didn't even look at her. "See that you do? And the fence in the south pasture needs mending. You can do that after you finish the laundry." Rosa nodded, even though she had never mended a fence in her life and had no idea how to do it. David never showed her how to do anything. He just expected her to figure it out on her own. The only bright spot in Rosa's days was Luna. The little girl had slowly started warming up to her, especially when David wasn't around. Luna would sit at the kitchen table while Rosa cooked, telling her about her day at school or asking questions about the Philippines. "Did you really live near the ocean?" Luna asked one afternoon while Rosa was making cookies. They had become Luna's favorite treat, and Rosa loved seeing the little girl's face light up when she pulled a fresh batch from the oven. "Yes, very close," Rosa answered, smiling at the memory. "I could walk to the beach in just 10 minutes. The water was so blue and warm. I've never seen the ocean," Luna said wistfully. "Dad says maybe we'll go on vacation someday, but we never do." Rosa could understand why. David seemed to think that anything fun or enjoyable was a waste of time and money. He never took Luna anywhere except school and the grocery store. The little girl was as trapped on this ranch as Rosa was. "Maybe someday I can show you pictures of the beach," Rosa offered. "I have some in my suitcase." Luna's eyes lit up. "Really? Can we look at them tonight?" "If your father says it's okay," Rosa replied carefully. She had learned to be very cautious about doing anything that might upset David. But when Luna asked her father at dinner, David just shrugged. "I suppose, just don't stay up too late." "Luna has school tomorrow." At night, Rosa and Luna sat on the little cot in Rosa's tiny room, looking through the few photographs Rosa had brought from home. Luna was fascinated by everything: the palm trees, the colorful houses. Rosa's family gathered around their small table for Sunday dinner. "Your sisters are so pretty," Luna said, pointing to a picture of Rosa with her 2 younger sisters. "Do you miss them?"
Art.
"Every day," Rosa admitted. "We used to talk and laugh together all the time. We shared everything." "I wish I had a sister," Luna said quietly. "It gets lonely here sometimes." Rosa's heart ached for this sweet little girl who seemed as isolated as she was. "Well, maybe you can think of me as your big sister," Rosa suggested. "Would you like that?" Luna nodded enthusiastically. "Yes." "Can you teach me some words in your language?" Rosa spent the next hour teaching Luna simple phrases in Tagalog, and they both dissolved into giggles when Luna tried to pronounce the more difficult words. It was the first time Rosa had laughed since arriving at the ranch, but their happy moment was interrupted by heavy footsteps in the hallway. David appeared in the doorway looking annoyed. "What's all this noise?" he demanded. "Luna, you should be in bed." "We were just looking at pictures, Dad," Luna explained. "Rosa was teaching me about the Philippines." David's expression darkened. "Luna doesn't need to learn foreign words. She's American. Now go to your room." Luna's face fell, and she quietly gathered up the photographs. "Good night, Rosa," she whispered before hurrying past her father. After Luna left, David turned his attention to Rosa. "Don't fill her head with nonsense about your old country. She needs to focus on her life here, not some faraway place she'll never see." "I was just sharing stories with her," Rosa said, trying to keep her voice calm. She was curious. "I'll keep your curiosity to yourself," David snapped, "and clean up this mess. I don't want Luna's room cluttered with your junk." The next morning, Rosa was surprised when David announced that he needed to go to town for supplies, and that she could come with him. She had been asking for weeks to go to town so she could mail a letter to her family, but David had always found excuses to say no. "Just remember what I told you," David warned as they drove toward Cedar Falls. "No talking to people about our business. Get what's on the list and stay close to me." Rosa nodded, but inside she felt excited. After 3 weeks of being stuck on the ranch, even a trip to the grocery store felt like an adventure. Cedar Falls looked different in the daylight than it had when she first arrived. It was still small and dusty, but Rosa could see that it had a certain charm. There were flower boxes in front of some of the shops, and people walking down the sidewalk actually smiled and nodded at each other. The grocery store was small, but well-stocked. Rosa pushed the cart, while David loaded it with basic supplies: bread, milk, canned goods, nothing fancy or interesting. She found herself staring longingly at the fresh vegetables and spices that reminded her of home. "Can we get some of these peppers?" Rosa asked, pointing to a display of Galapagos. "I could make something special for dinner. Those cost extra," David replied dismissively. "Stick to the list." Rosa's shoulders sagged with disappointment, but she didn't argue. She had learned that arguing with David only made him angry and didn't change his mind anyway. While David was talking to the store clerk about feed prices, Rosa wandered toward the small cafe area near the front of the store. There were a few tables and chairs where people could sit and have coffee, and the smell of fresh-baked goods made her mouth water. "Excuse me," a warm voice said behind her. "Are you new in town?" Rosa turned around to see a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was wearing an apron that said Isabella's Kitchen and had flour on her hands. "Yes," Rosa replied carefully, remembering David's warning about talking to strangers. "I am. I live at the Mitchell Ranch." The woman's expression changed slightly, and Rosa couldn't tell if it was surprise or concern. "Oh, you must be David's new wife." "Not yet," Rosa said quickly. "We are getting to know each other first." The woman nodded slowly. "I'm Isabella. I run the little restaurant across the street. I don't think I've seen you around town before today." "This is my first time coming to town," Rosa admitted. Isabella's eyebrows raised slightly. "Really? Been here for weeks and this is your first trip to town?" Before Rosa could answer, she felt a heavy hand on her shoulder. David had appeared beside her, and he did not look happy. "Rosa, we need to go," he said firmly. "We have a lot of work to do back at the ranch." "Of course," Rosa said quickly. "It was nice to meet you, Isabella." Isabella studied David's face for a moment, then looked back at Rosa. "It was nice to meet you too, dear. Hope I'll see you again soon." As they walked back to the truck, David gripped Rosa's arm tighter than necessary. "What did I tell you about talking to people?" "She was just being friendly," Rosa protested. "I didn't say anything about our business." "Isabella Garcia is the biggest gossip in town," David said angrily. "Now she's going to be asking questions about you and spreading stories." Rosa felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't know she seemed nice." "Nice doesn't matter," David replied coldly. "What matters is keeping our private life private. Don't let it happen again." But as they drove back to the ranch, Rosa couldn't stop thinking about Isabella's kind eyes and warm smile. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to her like she was a real person instead of just a worker. The brief conversation had reminded her that there were still good people in the world, even if she wasn't allowed to talk to them. That night, after David had gone to bed, Rosa sat in her tiny room and tried to write a letter to her family. But how could she tell them the truth about her situation? How could she explain that the man who had written such beautiful letters was nothing like the person she was living with? Instead, she wrote about the ranch and the wide open spaces, about Luna and her sweet personality, about the beautiful Montana sky. She didn't mention David's coldness or her loneliness or the fact that she felt more like a servant than a future wife. As she sealed the letter, Rosa made a promise to herself. Somehow, she was going to find a way to go back to town and talk to Isabella again. There was something about that woman that made Rosa feel hopeful, and she desperately needed hope right now. She didn't know it yet. But that brief meeting in the grocery store was about to change everything. 2 months had passed since Rosa's brief meeting with Isabella at the grocery store, and life at the ranch had only gotten worse. David seemed to find new ways to criticize her every day, and his anger was getting harder to control. Rosa had started to feel afraid of him, especially when he drank beer in the evenings, and his voice got louder and meaner. The breaking point came. On a Saturday morning in late September, Rosa was in the kitchen making breakfast when she accidentally dropped a plate. It shattered on the tile floor with a loud crash that seemed to echo through the whole house. What the hell was that? David's voice boomed from upstairs. Rosa quickly got down on her knees and started picking up the pieces, her hands shaking. She could hear David's heavy footsteps coming down the stairs, and her heart started beating faster. "I'm sorry," she said quickly as he appeared in the kitchen doorway. "It was an accident. I'll clean it up right away." But David's face was red with anger. "Do you have any idea how much those plates cost? They belonged to my wife, and now you've broken one of the few things I have left of her." "I'm really sorry," Rosa repeated, tears starting to form in her eyes. "It slipped out of my hands." "I didn't mean to." "You didn't mean to?" David interrupted, his voice getting louder. "You don't mean to do anything around here? You don't mean to burn the dinner? You don't mean to shrink my shirts? You don't mean to leave dirt on the floors? But somehow everything you touch gets ruined." Rosa felt something break inside her, and it wasn't just the plate. She had been apologizing for 2 months straight, accepting blame for everything that went wrong, trying to make herself smaller and quieter so David wouldn't get angry. But she was tired of it. "I work hard every day," she said, her voice still quiet but steadier than before. "I get up before sunrise and I don't stop until after you go to bed. I cook your meals and clean your house and take care of your daughter. I never complain, and I never ask for anything." David's eyes widened in surprise. Rosa had never talked back to him before. "Don't you dare raise your voice to me," he said, stepping closer to her. "You're here because I'm letting you stay here. You have nothing, and you are nothing without me. If I kicked you out right now, you'd be sleeping in the street." "Maybe that would be better than this," Rosa said, the words coming out before she could stop them. David's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "What did you say?" Rosa looked up at him, and for the first time in months, she didn't look away when he glared at her. "I said maybe sleeping in the street would be better than living like this." "You ungrateful little," David started to say, but he was interrupted by a small voice from the doorway. "Dad, what's wrong?" Luna appeared in her pajamas, looking scared and confused. "Why are you yelling?" David immediately changed his tone, though Rosa could see the anger still burning in his eyes. "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. Rosa just broke one of Mommy's plates, but it's okay. Go back upstairs and get dressed for breakfast." Luna looked between her father and Rosa, clearly sensing that something bigger was happening. "Are you okay, Rosa?" "I'm fine, Luna," Rosa managed to say, though her voice was shaky. "Go get dressed like your dad said." After Luna disappeared upstairs, David turned back to Rosa. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, but filled with threat. "If you ever embarrass me in front of my daughter like that again, you'll be on the next bus out of here with nothing but the clothes on your back. Do you understand me?" Rosa nodded. But inside she was thinking that maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing after all. The incident with the plate changed something in Rosa. She still did her work, and tried to stay out of David's way, but she stopped apologizing for every little thing. She stopped trying so hard to please him. She started paying attention to the town when they made their weekly trips for supplies. Cedar Falls wasn't as small as it had seemed at first. There were several shops along the main street, a small library, a church, and Isabella's restaurant, which Rosa could see from the grocery store window. Every time they went to town, Rosa found herself looking toward that restaurant and wondering what Isabella was like when she wasn't just saying hello to strangers. 3 weeks after the plate incident, Rosa got her chance to find out. David had come down with a bad cold and was too sick to make the weekly supply run. At first, he said they would just wait until he felt better. But when Luna complained that they were out of her favorite cereal and milk, he grudgingly gave Rosa money and a list. Go straight to the store, buy what's on the list, and come straight back, he instructed, his voice hoarse from coughing. Don't talk to anyone, and don't wander around looking at things we can't afford. Rosa nodded and tried to hide her excitement. This was the first time she had been anywhere alone since arriving in Montana. The walk to town took about 20 minutes, and Rosa enjoyed every step of it. The autumn air was crisp and clean, and the leaves on the trees had turned beautiful, shades of red and gold. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe freely at the grocery store. Rosa bought everything on David's list, plus a few small items that she paid for with money she had been saving from the small allowance he gave her each week. As she was leaving the store, she made a decision that surprised even her. Instead of walking straight back to the ranch, she crossed the street to Isabella's restaurant. The smell that greeted her when she opened the door was incredible. Fresh bread, spices, and something delicious cooking on the stove. The restaurant was small and cozy, with checkered tablecloths and plants in the windows. Isabella was behind the counter rolling out dough for what looked like empanadas. Well, hello there, Isabella said, looking up with a warm smile. Rosa, isn't it? From the Mitchell Ranch? Yes, Rosa replied, suddenly feeling nervous. I hope it's okay that I came in. I was just walking by and the smell was so wonderful. Of course it's okay, Isabella laughed. That's what restaurants are for. Would you like to sit down? I just made fresh coffee. Rosa glanced toward the window, knowing she should get back to the ranch. But Isabella's kindness was like sunshine. After months of rain, just for a few minutes, Rosa said, sitting down at a small table near the window. Isabella poured 2 cups of coffee and sat down across from Rosa. So how are you settling in? Must be quite an adjustment coming all the way from the Philippines. It's been ... different, Rosa said carefully. Everything here is so different from home. Isabella studied Rosa's face with knowing eyes. Different can be good or bad depending on the situation. How are you finding it? Something in Isabella's voice made Rosa feel like she could trust her. Honestly, it's been harder than I expected. David can be a difficult man, Isabella said gently. He's had a hard time since his wife died, but that's no excuse for taking it out on other people. Rosa looked up in surprise. About that, honey, this is a small town. People talk and people notice things. We've all been wondering how you're doing out there, but David doesn't exactly encourage visitors. Rosa felt tears starting to form in her eyes. I feel so alone, I thought. I thought it would be different. His letters were so kind and warm, but he's nothing like the person who wrote them. Isabella reached across the table and patted Rosa's hand. I'm sorry, dear, that must have been a terrible shock. I don't know what to do, Rosa admitted. I used almost all my money to get here, and I don't have anywhere else to go. But I can't keep living like this. Treats me like I'm his servant, not someone he wants to marry. Isabella was quiet for a moment, thinking. I've been looking for help here at the restaurant. Business has been picking up, and I can't handle everything by myself anymore. The pay isn't much, but it comes with a small apartment upstairs. It's not fancy, but it's clean and safe. Rosa's heart started beating faster. Are you serious? Completely serious. I saw how you looked at my empanadas just now. I bet you're a good cook, aren't you? I love to cook, Rosa said, feeling hope bloom in her chest for the first time in months. Back home, I help my mother with a small catering business. I can make traditional Filipino dishes, but I'm good at learning new recipes too. That's exactly what I need, Isabella said with a smile. Someone who understands good food and isn't afraid of hard work. Rosa felt dizzy with possibility. But what about David? He'll be so angry, and Luna... I can't just abandon Luna. You wouldn't be abandoning anyone, Isabella said firmly. You'd be taking care of yourself, which is something every woman needs to know how to do. As for David being angry, well, that's his problem, not yours. Rosa looked out the window toward the direction of the ranch. She could picture David waiting for her, probably getting more irritated with every minute that passed. She could picture Luna doing her homework at the kitchen table, maybe wondering where Rosa was. But she could also picture herself waking up in her own apartment, cooking food that people actually appreciated, having conversations with someone who treated her like a human being. When would you need me to start? Rosa asked quietly. Whenever you're ready, Isabella replied. But I have a feeling that might be sooner than you think. Rosa took a deep breath. She thought about the broken plate, about David's threats, about all the nights she had cried herself to sleep in that tiny room off the kitchen. She thought about her dreams of a loving family and how those dreams... 2 years had passed since Rosa left David's ranch, and her life had transformed in ways she never could have imagined. The small apartment above Isabella's restaurant had become her sanctuary, decorated with colorful fabrics from home and photographs of her new life in Cedar Falls. The smell of coffee and fresh bread drifted up from the restaurant every morning. Replacing the sound of David's angry voice as her daily wake-up call, Rosa had become Isabella's business partner rather than just an employee. Her Filipino dishes had become so popular that they'd expanded the menu, and people drove from neighboring towns just to try her chicken adobo and lumpia. The restaurant had doubled its income, and Rosa finally felt proud of her work instead of constantly criticized for it. Rosa, Table 6 wants to know if you can make that garlic rice recipe again, called Miguel, the young man who helped serve tables on busy nights. He had become like a younger brother to Rosa, always making her laugh with his jokes and stories about his adventures in town. Of course, Rosa replied, smiling as she added more garlic to the pan. Tell them it will be ready in 5 minutes. Isabella appeared beside her at the stove, carrying a stack of dirty plates. You know, when I first offered you this job, I thought I was helping you out. I had no idea you were going to help me build the best restaurant in the county. Rosa laughed, feeling warmth spread through her chest. We helped each other. That's what families do. That's what they had become, a family. Not the traditional family Rosa had dreamed about when she first came to America, but something even better. Isabella had become the mother figure Rosa had always needed, offering wisdom and support without trying to control her life. Miguel felt like the playful little brother she'd never had. Even some of the regular customers had become like aunts and uncles, checking on her when she was sick and celebrating her successes. The bell above the restaurant door chimed, and Rosa looked up to see a familiar small figure walk in. Her heart leaped with joy. Luna, Rosa called out, wiping her hands on her apron and hurrying over to give the girl a hug. Luna was now 9 years old and had grown taller, but she still had the same sweet smile that had brightened Rosa's darkest days at the ranch. She visited the restaurant every few weeks, usually when David came to town for supplies. He never came inside himself, but he allowed Luna to spend an hour or two with Rosa while he conducted his business. I missed you so much, Luna said, squeezing Rosa tightly. Dad said I could stay for 2 hours today because he has to go too. The bank and the feed store. That's wonderful, Rosa said, leading Luna to her favorite table by the window. Are you hungry? I just made fresh cookies. Luna's eyes lit up. The ones with coconut? The very same ones, Rosa confirmed, heading to the kitchen to get a plate of the treats that had become Luna's favorites. As Luna ate her cookies and told Rosa about school, her friends, and a book she was reading, Rosa marveled at how much the little girl had grown. Luna was more confident now, more talkative, and she seemed happier than she had been during Rosa's time at the ranch. How is your father? Rosa asked gently. She always asked, though she wasn't sure she really wanted to know the answer. Luna's expression grew more serious. He's okay, I guess. He hired a lady named Janet to help with the house and cooking. She's nice, but she's not like you. Rosa felt a pang in her chest. She had worried about Luna constantly during her first few months away from the ranch, wondering if the little girl felt abandoned or confused about why Rosa had left. Do you understand why I had to leave? Rosa asked carefully. They had talked about this before, but Rosa wanted to make sure Luna didn't blame herself. Luna nodded solemnly. You weren't happy there. Dad can be really mean sometimes, especially when he's sad about Mom. Janet told me that grown-ups sometimes need to make hard choices to take care of themselves. Rosa smiled, grateful that Janet seemed to be a wise and kind influence on Luna. That's exactly right. And leaving doesn't mean I stopped caring about you. You're still very important to me. I know, Luna said, reaching across the table to squeeze Rosa's hand. And I'm proud of you for being so brave. Isabella told me you're going to become an American citizen soon. Yes, next month. I've been studying for the test, and Isabella has been helping me practice my English. Your English is already perfect, Luna said loyally. It's much better than it was, Rosa agreed. When I first came here, I was so scared to talk to people because I thought they wouldn't understand me. Now I feel comfortable speaking with anyone. Isabella appeared at their table with a fresh cup of coffee for Rosa and a glass of milk for Luna. Speaking of talking to people, Rosa, there's someone here who'd like to meet you. Rosa looked toward the door and saw a man she didn't recognize standing near the entrance. Reed! He was about her age, with kind eyes and a gentle smile, wearing a simple button-down shirt and jeans. This is Carlos, Isabella said with a knowing look. He's the new teacher at the elementary school. Carlos, this is Rosa, my business partner and the best cook in 3 counties. Carlos approached their table looking slightly nervous. It's nice to meet you, Rosa. Isabella has told me so much about you and your amazing food. I was hoping to try some of your famous chicken adobo, of course, Rosa said, feeling her cheeks warm slightly. I'll make you a fresh plate. Actually, Isabella interjected, why don't you sit down and talk with Carlos for a few minutes? Luna and I can handle getting his order ready. Luna grinned and jumped up from her chair. Come on, Isabella, let's go cook something special. As they disappeared into the kitchen, Rosa found herself alone with Carlos, feeling butterflies in her stomach that she hadn't experienced in a long time. So you're a teacher, Rosa said, trying to make conversation. Do you like working with children? I love it, Carlos replied, his face lighting up. I teach 3rd grade, and the kids are amazing. They're so curious about everything and excited to learn. What about you? How did you end up in Cedar Falls? Rosa hesitated for a moment, then decided to be honest. It's a long story. I came here from the Philippines to marry someone, but it didn't work out. Isabella gave me a job and helped me start over. That takes a lot of courage, Carlos said, his voice full of admiration. Starting over in a new country can't be easy. Wasn't easy at first, Rosa admitted. But I had good people helping me. Isabella, Miguel, even some of the customers here became like family to me. They taught me that you don't have to be related to someone to love them and support them.
Carlos
Nodded thoughtfully. I know what you mean. I moved here from California after my divorce. My family is far away, but the people in this town have made me feel welcome. We talked for another hour, sharing stories about their backgrounds, their dreams, their experiences in Cedar Falls. Rosa found Carlos easy to talk to, unlike David, who had always made her feel like she was saying the wrong thing. Carlos listened to her stories about the Philippines with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and sharing his own experiences of adapting to a new place. When Luna and Isabella returned with Carlos's food, Luna whispered loudly to Rosa, I like him. He seems nice. Rosa blushed, but Carlos just laughed good-naturedly. I like you too, Luna. Rosa tells me you're an excellent student. I am, Luna said proudly. And Rosa taught me some words in Tagalog. Want to hear? For the next few minutes, Luna showed off her limited but enthusiastic Filipino vocabulary, making everyone at the table laugh. Rosa felt her heart swell with happiness watching this sweet little girl who still felt like her daughter in many ways. All too soon, it was time for Luna to go back to meet her father. As Rosa walked her to the door, Luna turned and gave her another tight hug. I love you, Rosa, Luna said simply. I'm so happy you found your real home. After Luna left, Rosa stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her walk down the street toward David's truck. The little girl waved back at her, and Rosa waved until she disappeared around the corner. She's right, you know, Carlos said softly, appearing beside Rosa. This does seem like your real home. Rosa looked around at the restaurant, at Isabella, cleaning tables while humming a Spanish song, at Miguel stacking chairs and joking with the last few customers. She thought about her cozy apartment upstairs, her citizenship test next month, and the business she had helped build from nothing. Yes, she said, feeling more certain than she had about anything in a long time. It really is. 6 months later, Rosa and Carlos were married in a small ceremony in the town park, surrounded by their chosen family of friends and neighbors. Luna was Rosa's flower girl, beaming with pride as she scattered rose petals down the aisle. Isabella cried happy tears and gave a speech about how proud she was to see Rosa find the love and happiness she deserved. David had reluctantly given permission for Luna to participate in the wedding, though he didn't attend himself. Rosa didn't mind. This celebration was about the family she had chosen and built, not the one that had rejected her. As Rosa and Carlos danced their first dance as husband and wife, she looked around at all the faces smiling back at her. These people had seen her at her lowest point and helped her rise. They had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. It shown her that love isn't something you